for making time for this meeting to consider a couple items. Rebecca, we have some guests. Do you want to take a minute and maybe do some introductions, or just talk through that part before we get to the other parts of the agenda?
Why don't we do the minutes first, and then we can do introductions when we get to number 3.
Sounds good. All right. So I hope everybody had a chance to read the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Minutes pass. Now moving on to item 3. So Rebecca, how best should we approach? I can walk through this if we want.
Sure. And we also have
Okay.
Tom Bate on the phone from
Yeah.
Catalyst Development, so we can introduce him. Tom is here, and Peter, maybe after you walk through, if there's any questions that people have specifically related to this item, and Tom, that he is here and available to answer.
Yep. So just to give just a little, so Tom and Catalyst are, I would, in the midst of evaluating a potential project, and we are also in the midst of developing our TIF policy. So Tom has been interested to conform with that policy and work with the village on that. And so I guess we find ourselves in an interesting position here where we don't have a finalized policy. And Tom, just, I would say an example of a developer who really wants to work with the village. He has been very open and transparent about, again, he likes the fact that we are moving to a policy. It helps provide definition for Catalyst, and just wants to work with us as best to move that forward. So one of the key points, obviously, in the policy is with respect to some of the fees that we have to offset the costs that the village incurs through this process. Tom and Catalyst have offered to, certainly in this phase 1, to pay the fees that were outlined in the original agreement or the original policy. And again, Rebecca, stop me if I'm going sort of off the fact pattern here, but so we obviously presented this to the village board. They had some comments back, so they did not approve it. So we currently do not have an approved policy. But in the interest of continuing to work with Tom and Catalyst to move this forward, again, Tom has offered to basically offset those costs, pay the $5,500 initial fee. In staff's discussion with President Rozek, I would say she was a little concerned that could be deemed to be some sort of bribe or illegal payment. I struggle a little bit to see that, but nonetheless, that was the concern. So you can see in staff's write-up of the issue, we touched base with Bruce Block, we touched base with Village Attorney Beyer. I would say what I interpret from their legal expertise is that this, the CDA, I think, was within its rights to pass a resolution to receive these fees to offset the costs. And you can sort of see, there's really, I guess there's 3, as Rebecca laid it out here, 3 steps we can take. One is we don't accept it since the policy has not been approved and the village just incurs the expense. We do take it, and again, it offsets directly, or we sort of stop, cease and desist everything until we have a policy in place and can move forward. So my recommendation to the CDA is I personally feel this is our fiduciary responsibility to the village to not, again, the point of the policy was that the village doesn't incur these expenses, that the developer should as part of the project. So it seems to me it is a logical path to pass the resolution that Catalyst will pay the expenses. Again, it is a direct offset. This is not a revenue generator for the village. And we are, I feel like saving resources on the village's part to do that. So Rebecca, maybe I'll just turn to you for a minute to make sure I've laid that out correctly for the CDA.
Yes, that would be correct. And we just had someone else join the call. I don't know if that's another CDA member who's 248.
Joe Lesage.
Joe
Hey,
Lesage.
Joe.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I just wanted to make sure that I was.
Sorry, my internet wouldn't let me connect, so I had to call.
Okay, not a problem. No,
Okay, so with
nothing
that,
further to add, Peter.
I'll
Chair
open it.
Hammond,
Yes.
since you mentioned my concern in the memo, this is President Rozak. I just want to clarify what I had spoken to Rebecca about. My concern is that we do have a fee schedule at the Village of Shorewood, and we chose as a board to defer charging a fee at the moment because we did not have an adopted policy. We deferred the policy, and therefore there's nothing the Village of Shorewood that requires or allows us to accept money from a developer to offset costs for a feasibility study that does not hold up the application or the CDA from reviewing the project. If the developer would like to submit a request for money, we would just handle it exactly the same as we have in the past until we have a policy direction from the village board and a fee schedule. So therefore, yes, the CDA can adopt a resolution and then it would go, I assume, to the village board, because we cannot charge a fee without the village board, which is the legislative body who is in charge of budgeting and fees, until the village board would direct us or adopt some legislation that says we should take a fee from an individual. And therefore, if you do adopt a resolution and it does go to the village board, that would be perfectly fine if the village board said yes and approved the resolution, in my opinion. Then I would feel comfortable taking money from a developer for any reason. But until that happens, I do not and will not vote to take any money from a developer in tandem with a private development without a policy or a fee schedule in place. Saying that, I want to repeat, you had said just a minute ago, that means we can hold everything until a policy is in place. That is not correct. We have always entertained requests from developers for PID funding. And in the past, and we've actually awarded it before my tenure. And so we would just handle the request exactly how we've handled it in the past. It's not irresponsible, nor is it fiduciarily, incorrect. We've done it in the past, and many communities do entertain TIF policy or requests without a policy in place. So I just wanted to be clear that I'm not against awarding TIF. I'm not against entertaining TIF requests. I am just completely 100% against entertaining taking money from a private developer for a request for public funding without the village board adopting either a resolution or a policy or a fee schedule that would allow such transaction. That is it. Thank you very much.
All right, so any questions, comments from CDA members?
Yeah, I have
David,
a,
yes.
I share the concern about taking charging anybody, kind of on an ad hoc basis, a fee. And I agree with President Rosick. We do have a fee schedule that's formally adopted by the board. We're also within a week or 2 weeks of, this is the very last round of changes to the policy. I'm just curious why there's such a rush on this. Like a week or 2 weeks is going to make, why does that make such a big difference? Why can't we just wait until there is a TIF policy and a formal fee in place?
Well, I would let Tom speak to that. I guess I would just say it is possible. I mean, I guess theoretically it's a week to 2 weeks, but it has been multiple months that this process has been going on. So, just from the developer's perspective, they have been wanting to move sooner than that. So I guess I would just say that this has been in the works for a while with respect to the developer. So, and I don't know that we can commit that it's only going to be a week or 2 weeks.
I mean, I think there's a desire on the part of the current board that's going to change at the beginning of May after the election. There's a strong desire on the part of the current board to adopt this policy. And I speak for myself, and I believe President Rosick agrees. So we are determined to adopt this policy. I mean, as far as the process being a long time, I mean, it has been maybe for you and Rebecca, but the rest of us didn't know anything about it, And I mean, so I'd like to know why there's such a hurry. And I'd also like to know if the developer has applied to the state program for low-income housing tax credits.
Tom, you want to go ahead and address that directly?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just waiting for the right
And
time.
welcome. Welcome.
Yeah. You had a couple of questions in there about timing, the rush, and tax credit for affordable housing. So a couple of things with that, I'll break those down. One, the timing, we started talking with Shorewood, I think last summer, fall about this. And part of our push is that we have deadlines with closing on the properties. Right now we have options that are quickly getting to the point where they expire. When we negotiated, they were 9 months out, and we're running out of that. And to close on the land, we need to, for financing and equity investment and a number of other things, we need to have our plan defined going forward for a number of different reasons. And we've been working with the Village of Shorewood, one, understanding the TIF program that you guys are putting in place, hoping that it would be approved. We've gone through this a couple of months. When it did not get approved the last time, that was when I suggested it. Is there a way that we can move forward with a TIF, basically following the plan, covering the fees, applying for it, just as if, I think the president said, I mean, you guys have done TIFs in the past without the program. We're trying to work within the program because we're trying to develop some level of affordable housing, because that's one of our corporate principles here and the folks that we work with. We looked at doing a couple of things on this site. None of them have worked out. We're down to the last two options, which is a straight market rate or a small percentage of affordable housing. So, and that's why we're asking this now, because we're just running out of time. And if we can't get to a TIF shortly, we'll kind of be forced to go all market rate on the property, because without a TIF, the affordable portion does not work. In regards to affordable tax credit, initially we ran this project as an 80-20 affordable, non-affordable, affordable market rate. And the numbers, the debt service just wasn't covered there, that we were going to use the 4% tax credits, the non-competitive. We also ran it for the 9% competitive and did not feel that we would get awarded for that, especially with WIDA's recent emphasis more on rural housing than housing in urban areas for the next year or two. So, I've shared the pro forma before with folks. I'm happy to show the pro forma on the 4% tax credits and why it doesn't work on this particular site in terms of equity returns. We just can't get those numbers to work even with a TIF. So I hope to answer your questions on why we're pushing for a TIF right now. And I appreciate you guys are on a track that, you shouldn't do it just for one developer. We're not asking you to hurry anything or finish anything. We're asking if there's an alternative. And if there isn't, there isn't. I get that. But we're just trying to find a way to work through this.
Thanks, Tom.
Can I, Chair Hammond,
Yes,
President Rozak, thank you for that explanation. I don't understand, I still don't understand why our village manager is asking and requiring you to pay a fee in order for you to apply for TIF. We do not have a policy, nor do we have a fee schedule in place. And if the timing is an issue, I see no reason why you were held up from making your request. So I do apologize for that. Anyone has the right to make the request to the CDA and to the village board.
Understood. I appreciate your apology. Thank you. There's no need for that. We were just trying to work with you guys as you developed your TIF policy, just because it's a pretty interesting, pretty comprehensive TIF policy compared to the other ones we worked with, and it married up with our project. So no need for that. We've been trying to work with you, and unfortunately, I'm just running out of time to be.
yeah,
No problem. So I just
want to be
will
clear.
change.
Nobody's requiring anything. Again, this was Tom and Catalyst coming back and saying, is there a way? I think we're all just trying to work. We are in this interim period. Everybody agree? It's, we're just trying to figure out what is the best path forward. We have a developer willing to work with us. So I think it is sort of Tom's comment, if we can't do anything, we can't do anything, but let's explore options here to
Right.
see if there's something. And I guess I wasn't, so, and again, shame on me. I mean, if the requirements are that everything must be approved by the village board and that the CDA does not have authority to request fees, then I think, I guess I wasn't aware that it was that definitive. And if it is, then, I guess that kind of ends the conversation to some degree. Yes, Kathy.
So I have not seen the agenda yet for Monday. Is this on the agenda? Is the TIF policy on the agenda?
It will be listed if it is recommended by this group.
Okay, so if things are recommended today, and if it's approved by the board on Monday, do we have a problem?
No, if I can get my application in the next week or so, we shouldn't have a problem. I'm happy to wait until you get through Monday's board.
Okay, obviously, 2 votes need to occur.
Right.
But so I see, what is the problem with, I don't understand. I could go along with option 4. I don't understand. It seems to me like we're 90% of the way through to the finish line on this policy. Why would we not head down the road towards using the policy, even if we haven't taken 2 votes? We're so close. It seems to me that we should start to take advantage of the work that we've done. The developer is willing to pay the fee. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you. I just want to explain one more time that there is not policy in place to accept a fee from a developer. So you will have to.
This is Joe Lasage. Can the developer just pay Baker Tilly and provide us with the study?
I was going to
reimbursing us.
I was going to suggest that they wouldn't be working for you, but it'd be no different than if we hired a traffic study to supply you with an outside consultant or any of the other documents.
Yeah.
We usually
It can be
do
done
ourselves
today,
to give to the city.
Yeah, if the developer doesn't have a problem with that, then we're not accepting a fee and we just have a good workaround.
The response to that would be no. Baker Tilly does work for us and we would be paying them.
Correct. And I just want to say one more thing, just to give the developer my 2 cents, so he doesn't waste his money. I believe the owner of this property is Paul Hackenberth. Is that correct? The owner of Camp?
Paul Hackbarth.
Okay, thank you. Regardless of that, I was very excited about the project when it was disability housing for people with affordable housing for people with disabilities. I do recognize that the project from today's conversation has changed to a few units of affordable housing. It's in my opinion, I would not vote for such small affordable housing receiving public subsidy. It's not on a bus line. It's on a bus line, but it's not on a direct bus line as would be on Oakland Avenue. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents worth to let you know that I can't say how I would vote, but at this moment, I would be leaning towards not looking favorably on receiving public subsidy for this type of development and such small units of affordable housing. So with that, I will let the conversation continue. Thank you.
So just in terms of process, so obviously best case is village board accepts the changes that we'll be discussing in a minute with respect to the policy and approves it on Monday, and then there's no issue and we move forward, right? I think that's, under that scenario, everything's fine and we're good. If on Monday, the village board, there are additional comments, feedback, and it is not finalized, I'm curious, operationally, to Kathy's point with option 4, is there a way to do a sort of, if that happens and it's not approved by the board, that they can then consider the resolution that we would have passed today? Is that feasible under meeting
Option
structure?
4 that Trustee Stokebrand mentioned was merely the CDA making a motion that they charge the developer the proposed phase 1 application charge, and that it would be supplanted by any adoption of the comprehensive TID policy and fee structure at a later date.
Yeah, I guess, and so to make sure I understand, I thought I heard President Rozak say, if the CDA did that, and again, I don't want to misspeak, I thought she said if the CDA did that, that would provide, and then that went to the board, that because the CDA acted on it, the board would be more comfortable in then accepting the payment of that fee. Is that not a correct, did I miss?
Attorney Bayer did not reference that a motion with option 4 would need to move forward to the board,
To the
that it
board,
would be an action taken by the CDA.
okay.
So the money would be held by the CDA. The $5,000 check would be written to the Village of Shorewood. It would be held in a CDA account. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the CDA would pay
But
Baker Tilly.
Correct.
We've been very good, the village board with the CDA, and Peter, Chair Hammond, I believe I was on the CDA for 4 years, and we always had an agreement that we would be complete partners. And if the village president is feeling uncomfortable with accepting money without a village fee schedule in place adopted by the village board, I really feel that it was going against the agreement of working in partnership and doing something that feels wrong. So I state that it's fair in his legal expertise and Bruce Block that the CDA can do and accept fees without village board approval. So be it. I've never seen that happen before. A matter of fact, not in my tenure. But if we want to go against past history, that is fine. You're a separate entity created by the village. So saying that, I'll let you guys talk.
Yes, Kathy.
So President Rozak, what's your preference? What would you like to see happen?
My preference is I would never want to hold up the developer. I appreciate that the developer has waited because he wanted to see what we would allow and not allow in a policy. And I don't believe our policy has changed very much based on the edits we provided to staff at the last meeting. So saying that, if he's ready to apply, I would like him to apply to the CDA and the CDA make a recommendation to the village board. No fee changes hands until the village board adopts a policy that puts in place a fee schedule that would accept and require money from a private entity. Other
And so
than that,
retroactively,
no hold up on the
retroactively, would we charge him the $5,500?
Oh.
Yes or no? I'm
Absolutely
sorry.
not. We would, the 5,000, no, we would eat the 5,000 like we always have. There's never been a fee in place. There isn't a fee in place. There's no such thing as a fee right now. And then if by the time they get to the second phase, which is the $8,000 fee in our draft policy, then if that is adopted by the village board, we would then charge the developer the $8,000 plus the fee for the consultant to run the feasibility analysis and paperwork. The first 5,000, there's nothing in place that says we're allowed to take that money, or it's like it doesn't exist. We're just making it up.
So at this
Granted, there's a
point, the village,
draft out there, but
so-
it's not. So CDA would just pay Baker Tilly to run the first, to come up with a term sheet. If you as a CDA member, if your board, your CDA says, yes, we want to move forward with this application or this request, just like in the past, you would then take Baker Tilly, they would run the feasibility, the first initial feasibility. It would cost
we know
about
what the process. I don't want to revisit the process. We know what the process is. So Kathy,
Yeah,
did
and
you
then
have another
with terms
comment, Kathy? Sorry.
So I just
Kathy,
want to be
you-
clear, then the CDA would pay the $5,500 for the Baker Tilly
Yes,
phase 1, not the developer.
correct.
correct.
Thank you.
I've been looking through the village code because we do have a fee schedule that's adopted by the board each year in village code. I mean, there are certain legal requirements about fees. They have to be reasonably related to the amount, that you're charging for. So you can't set a fee for $10,000 for a building inspection when the inspector's only there for 3 hours. Okay, they have to be. So it's not like you can just set a fee at whatever amount you want. There are issues. There are laws around setting fees. Most of the fees in the code reference that they are reasonably related to the cost. So, I mean, I guess I'm just saying that there's a government process and there's the thought process behind setting a fee. And part of that process is related to the board approving a fee schedule of all fees. I'm not a municipal lawyer, so I don't know all of them. I just am someone who's been in government for a while. And I understand that a fee is different from an assessment, is different from a tax. They're all different. And there are legal requirements about them. So yes, I mean, I feel like jumping ahead here. I mean, if the developer, at this point, we don't have a fee in place. If he wants to put in an application, he can put in an application right now, and he's saying, no, I want to give you this money. And I think we're saying, okay, well, we have a developer here. Is there an issue with us without any structure saying, okay, yeah, we'll take your money? I mean, I just don't understand. We're going to be talking about it on Monday. I mean, it may not be adopted on Monday, but it may very well be adopted on Monday. If there are ethical, I think what President Rosick is trying to say is, are there potential ethical issues with outside the structure of an adopted fee schedule, accepting money from an entity who is then asking us to give him money, So I just don't understand why he doesn't just put in his application under the situation that we are in now, or wait until Monday. I mean, I that's my feeling too.
Okay. Any other CDA comments? I guess, sorry, Mike.
Well, we do have another meeting scheduled next week, and perhaps we could defer this issue of whether or not we can accept the money and hope that the board follows through and we get an adopted policy at their board meeting on Monday that includes a fee structure. And then a few days later, we can take up this issue as a CDA.
I think that's a great suggestion. If you make a motion, I will second it.
John?
Yeah. Can we afford the $5,500 as a CDA? Is this a big deal?
We can afford it.
Okay.
Well, yeah. as
So
we've done in the past. We've paid this.
certainly it'd be nice not, to have a net zero there. But it sounds like developer can apply. We have the process in place to review the application as we always have done, assuming what President Rozak said is correct, that we've done this in the past. This is how we've been operating. I guess I don't see.
Yeah, we've incurred the costs in the past. Exactly, right.
Apply, let's do it. Let's just move things along. If this new fee schedule and the application process takes 20 months to get passed, so be it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yes,
mean,
Mike.
Given our board, it could take 20 months. So let's just move forward and get this stuff rolling. Someone wants to build something in our village. I don't see the holdup.
And I guess all I'm saying is, I agree with President Rosick that we have worked in partnership with the board over the years.
Yeah.
And it would be different if we had a month delay until the CDA was going to meet again. And we certainly can move forward next week if the board, has some other direction that they take on Monday. But giving them the benefit of the doubt that we can work together with just a week delay, I guess would be my thought.
Okay. Okay, so
And
given that,
I'm fine with either.
sorry,
I agree with Joe. I agree with both Mike Dawson and Joe Lesage. That either is fine with me. Move forward if we want things to happen in our village, and you can't guarantee what the village board. I'm on 7, so I can't see that the policy will pass and not be delayed. So in that instance, I would say yes, move forward. As a CDA, $5,000 or $5,500 is nothing compared to what we've given out in the past. And we definitely serve. So utilize our funds. We haven't utilized CDA funds since we transferred the money over. But I also agree with Commissioner Dawson that if you want to wait a week and it doesn't pass and then put in the application, or then put in the request, I should say, that would be.
okay, so Rebecca, and again, this is more on me. In my role, my business role, I wear a fiduciary hat all the time. And so I think I was, again, we had a developer who was willing to do this. So if anybody's to blame, look to me, because I'm the one that kept asking the question, is there a way we can make this work? So I would agree with all the comments made. I agree the partnership is very important. And it sounds to me like maybe the sort of, as you said, the process and the requirements at the village board level do sort of override everything. And I don't want to get sideways on that or make, unilateral and unique and one-off decisions on this kind of stuff. So I guess I am comfortable hoping for adoption on Monday. And then if not, I agree, Catalyst and Tom can move forward with the application with the current structure. Just we go from there, or they could do that right now if they wanted to.
Well, how about if I test the waters and move the CDA delays action on this until our meeting next week, but no later than our meeting next week, and give the board time to see if they are going to put a fee structure in place and adopt the TID policy.
Everybody understand the motion?
I'll second it.
I already seconded it.
Oh, sorry, we didn't hear
Be
you.
repeated, sorry.
So rather than take action today, the CDA will delay decision on this until its meeting next week. Which day is it a week from today? Yeah. So, but no later than dealing with it a week from today. And with the hopes that the board will adopt the policy and set a fee structure at its Monday meeting.
We meet next Thursday, is that right?
Yeah, we have another meeting.
Okay, so we meet after
Yep.
the board, so we'll know if
Right.
the board does their
Yes.
thing. Okay, got it.
Right.
Correct. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I guess any more discussion on that?
Can
Okay,
I ask what the meeting is? What the agenda
Sorry?
is for next Thursday? What is the meeting for next Thursday already set up?
The meeting for next Thursday is for the CDA to discuss TID extension.
Oh, for the affordable housing?
Yes.
No. Correct,
Well, for extension of TID 1, yeah.
correct.
Okay, so I
Okay,
have a
well, that makes,
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thanks, Dusty. All right, I think that passed unanimously. Thank you, everybody. That was a very good discussion. Again, my apologies of trying to think through this thing. I appreciate you all helping us find that path. Okay, then moving on to the last item, the board's request for modifications to the policy. Sorry, I'm just getting to the page. So again, we presented to the board. The board had some very good feedback and comments, and appreciated the work that the CDA and staff has done. So I think the best, again, Rebecca, unless you think there's a better way, I was just going to run through these. I think there's 6 items to discuss and get CDA thoughts and incorporate in so that we can then get that back to the village board for consideration. And again, I don't think any of these are challenge. I feel like they're pretty straightforward. Some of them we should have considered before, so I appreciate the board's feedback on it. So the first item is, just the way the wording is, it would appear that, we could do TIF assistance just to increase tax base, and I agree that is not, that does not make sense at all. Tax base is going up all the time, so it would, it needs to be one of the other, inclusive of one or more of the other listed items, benefits that we currently have listed in the policy. So again, I would call this kind of a wording change to just make it clearer that we cannot do TIF assistance just for tax base increase. Anybody have any concerns, questions, comments on that one? And again, my Kathy and Dava and even President Rosak, just make sure I'm expressing these correctly from your memory of the village board meeting as well, just to make sure I'm accurately representing what the issue was or whether we're resolving it with this language for all 6 of these. Okay, so any concerns on that one? Okay, item 2, this is a very good point. There was, as we had, I would guess, kind of some specific, but more generic language. We were, I don't want to say struggling, but it was, how do we define the disadvantaged class aspect that we were looking at here with respect to vendors to work with. So staff reached out to City of Milwaukee, County of Milwaukee, others about their policy, and so got some language from them that I would say was sort of more definitive and specific on them. And again, Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think sort of the Milwaukee County maintains a list, and that we as the Village of Shorewood would sort of look to that list as the list that we would use for purposes of defining the disadvantaged class. Did I say that correctly, Rebecca?
Correct.
Okay. So again, instead of us defining our own, I think we're relying on, we are part of Milwaukee County. We're relying on the county to help us define that and then using that. So as they update, we would update ours so we stay in conformance with the county's definition. Yes, Kathy.
I had a question. An addition is the $1 million threshold.
Oh, yes, thank you.
And so that's an industry, or that's the standard for the county, and we feel that that fits our village, obviously.
That
Yeah, and
actually,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry,
I was just gonna say,
Rebecca,
it
go
wasn't
ahead.
the standard for the county, but that is a threshold for the city of Milwaukee.
And sorry, that's a good point. The other issue that the board brought up, right, and again, I know something we struggled with was our incentives were not, the policy didn't define the incentives. And so then there was concern of inconsistency, again, rightfully so. So this policy says that, you know, if the developer receives $1 million, that then they are required to then do certain things with respect to the disadvantaged classes. So making it more definitive to the developer.
And I would defer to the people in the industry about that number. Is that something that looks good for a village our size and the things that have been done in the past, $1 million?
Yeah, I was wondering of what size project, I mean, I don't know if this is even a question that can be answered, but what size project would $1 million of support be supporting roughly? Is that 10% of a project, 50%? Like, does anyone know?
From looking at Shorewood's past contributions, I don't believe that we've contributed less than $1 million on any of the projects we've done in the last 10 years. I haven't been here the full 10 years, but if anyone has any information to the contrary, if you look at our TID plans,
But how
they're
big were those projects? Were they 10 million, 50 million? Like how big was the overall projects approximately? Just curious.
I would need to grab the TID plans to give you specifics, but we'd have Metro Market, Cornerstone.
They were like 25 million and up, the projects. the
I have
construction.
Cornerstone got 2.3 million out of 14.5 million project. Metro got 5.5 out of a $40 million project. Harbor Chase got 1.7 out of 20 million. Light Horse 4.1 out of 14.3. And the Sherman project 5.5 out of 18 million. So
Okay, so they're pretty big projects. I mean, we're not
Yes.
talking about someone building a 10-unit apartment building or something.
No.
This is to start a TIF. I mean, to start a, you know, to do a TIF is a major project, right? It's not a little thing.
Okay.
but
So it
I
seems
mean,
like the million is a pretty good floor. Sorry, David, go ahead.
but I mean, I think we've thought that the big, sites and big projects are kind of done with. I mean, I guess we still have the hotel proposal for Capital Oakland. I mean, that could conceivably be a big one, but I'm not sure, in the future, we might be looking at smaller scale types of things. So, but, I guess, does it make sense to, if you're talking about a smaller project, does it make sense to have these strict requirements about MBE participation? Because that's a cost. It's an additional. I mean, it's an important value, but it also is a cost on the developer doing the project to be able to comply with the monitoring and blah blah blah. So I don't know that maybe it's not appropriate for smaller projects. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think with building costs as they are in general, just without layering on other requirements and monitoring and using specific people, it's already hard to build small scale projects and make them work, especially with housing. So, I mean, the $1 million seems good to me.
And again, it's as Rebecca said, it's to some degree based on our experience, which I agree, David, is maybe a little skewed higher as we look forward. But it's kind of the best data that we have at this point, and I think we will certainly look at that moving forward and monitor that. And if we feel we need to drop it lower, given the project types that we start to see, we can certainly do that. So I think that's why we felt like the million seemed like the floor for what had happened in the past. And, you know, for the construction of another TID, I mean, that is a major, typically you're only going to do that for a major type of project,
Yeah.
but I think would be at least $1 million of assistance. So, I mean, it's such a huge undertaking. You're not doing it likely, maybe, you know, I shouldn't say never, but 250,000, even 500,000, it's, you know, I feel like we would be, is that really worth it to do that? So again, I agree. I feel like $1 million at this point is a good number. It's based on the best information we have. It's something we should keep a close eye on to make sure it's achieving the goal that we really want to achieve. So that's why I'm comfortable with it.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll take all 6 of these and I guess then make a motion for all of them. But any other comments on this component? Again, I would say fundamentally the 2 components of change are more clearly defining the minority business entities and making it an actual requirement that at a certain level of subsidy, the developer must do this. So again, putting more structure around it. Okay, moving on to item 3. Yeah, so this is the item that went away because we are now sort of defining the actual actions that the developer must take. And so we had that incentive language in there. So we're striking that, correct, Rebecca? That's what this item addresses?
Correct.
Okay. Any concerns with that, given our agreement on item 2? Okay. Seeing none, item 4 was the incorporation of green infrastructure language. This was a miss on my part. We should have had this in there. So thank the village board for bringing this up. And I would say, and I'll defer to Rebecca a little bit again, because this, based on conversations with the city and the county as to how they address this one. Again, we're looking at kind of that $1 million number where we are not necessarily requiring anything, but what we are requiring the developer to put together a report of the potential costs of incorporating green infrastructure into their project. So we have that information to incorporate into our decision of whether to provide the subsidy. And then there's also the energy efficiency component of what we are striving for. And so again, encouraging the developer to include those aspects into their development. We did meet with the Conservation Committee, get their thoughts on this. They have a very well thought out document of sort of, it's defined as good, better, best in terms of sustainable green components. And we would have that, I don't want to use the wrong terminology, but I would say we would have that available to developers as a resource document for them to understand what the goals of the village are, the desires, and that will help drive and define their project where they lay out what they might be, what they could do and the cost of what they might do. So again, just Rebecca, did I express that one accurately?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you. So comments, questions on that? Yes, Kathy.
So if the second paragraph, within 2 years, they submit for certification, what if they don't get it? Does it matter?
There are two approaches you could take. You could make it a requirement with some money held in earnest through the development agreement. The purpose of having this in here was to more so get the developer to start thinking at the beginning of design in terms of how to make their building more efficient. The county, this was a recommendation that came from the county team. And from their perspective, whether or not they met it or not, the exercise of going through to see how their development could better be served from an energy perspective during the design stage, using Target Finder would inevitably provide opportunities for them to see greater efficiency if utilizing some of those options right from the start.
Okay, so it's mostly encouraging the idea of doing it,
Correct.
requiring that they at least
Yes.
go through the motion, so they've checked out to see what the benefit of solar would be.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the first paragraph that referenced $1 million, that was a recommendation from the city of Milwaukee. The city of Milwaukee also requires their developers to provide a plan. There are no requirements associated nor incentives associated with that plan. But again, it starts with the end in mind, as someone begins to design the development of what could be possible, and then also provides that information up front to the CDA and the board and allows them to exercise any decisions, requirements, or incentives based upon what that specific development and the groups at that time feel would be appropriate.
Okay, so then the village would just want a copy of the application for certification, so we know they've done it, they've tried.
Correct. And to see their
Correct.
marks.
Yep. Yep.
That, just one other point, I think that's also important as we try to measure what impact we're having within the scope of our community. And it's something that a lot of larger cities are doing to allow themselves an opportunity to measure what their impact has been in the area of conservation. Thank you.
Yes, David.
So we're asking them to investigate and provide information, but we're not tying it to any incentives or requirements.
Correct.
Okay.
And it was both the
Correct, at this
recommendation of
point.
the city and the county that it not be tied to any specific requirements.
I mean, I know you met with some representatives of Conservation Committee, just because I'm sure before this comes to us on Monday, we'll hear from Conservation Committee. So was this a consensus of the group that met yesterday or the day before, or I mean, what, or if anyone from Conservation is on the call who might, because I just don't want to, you know, this to become an issue that might cause more questions at the board meeting. So I'm just trying to get a sense of was Conservation satisfied with this proposal?
100% great. Thank you, David. That's a great point. I see Donna is on. I'm happy to, I would say, I think we were definitely on the same page. I think Conservation was very appreciative of being inclusive, of having their voice included, and the inclusion of their good, better, best document as a reference document. I think they appreciated. So I feel like we're on the same page. I think this is a step in the direction, and that's kind of, I feel like, where we are. I think we all believe there's more we can do in the future, but this is a good first step. And then with that, I see Donna's off mute, so I'll turn it over to Donna so she can provide her thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I would agree with what you just said, that it's going to be a document that's referenced and promoted, but not going to be a requirement for a subsidy. Am I correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments on item 4?
So it would be sort of like section 2, where they're supposed to meet these goals, but second paragraph, if compliance is not possible, they just document the reasons and justifications to still get approval for the disadvantaged classes, right? It's similar to that.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to move on? Yes. Okay, item 5. Again, a very good point. No subsidy for just luxury or market rate housing. That's not eligible for TID. So I don't see a big issue with this. And again, this there was discussion at the board level about, so it can be a combination of market rate and subsidized housing that would be allowable, but it's just if it's a strict market rate development, then really there is no availability for TID activity. Any questions or comments on that one? Yes, David.
I would suggest we remove the generally, because that kind of says, well, usually we won't, but maybe we will. And I mean, I think the board was pretty clear that we didn't want to subsidize market rate housing. So that would be my suggestion.
Chair Gammon, I would second that. I think we made it clear, and I don't know if the CDA was all listening, but if it's a mix of affordable and market rate, the whole project is still eligible to apply. But if it's strictly market rate or luxury, and right now it just says luxury, which is fine, then it would not be allowed to apply. So I would remove the word generally.
Kathy, did you have a
I just want to make
comment?
it clear then that the mix would be approved. I guess
Yes.
that's what the word generally put in there means, that if you have the mix, it would be okay, unless you want to just specifically say a mix of market and affordable would be considered.
I think
That would be better.
Yeah, I think that let's be clear. Yeah, that's exactly what we mean.
Yeah,
So-
maybe we can just say TIF assistance will not be considered for market rate housing unless the project has a percentage of affordable rate housing as well, or something along those lines. Is that kind of what we're saying?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you're still muted, John.
Sorry. So I guess we just need a few more words in that sentence.
Yeah, this, and I don't want to, I know we're running up on time here. I don't want to distract the conversation. This is an area that I guess I struggle with a little bit from a policy perspective that, you know, I agree the current board is not interested in subsidizing market rate housing. I guess I don't know that a future board would have that same view. And so to me, I think of a policy as a forever document. And it's these kinds of things where, again, it's current thinking, but now again, a future board can change the policy. But, you know, if they want to go down that path, I guess the step is that they have to change the policy and move on. So we're fine with that. But I don't know. Again, these are the things, just so you know, I personally struggle with being this definitive operationally in a policy document. But John, I think the words you use for purposes of moving this forward, I don't know, Rebecca, did you capture that effectively, that we can include those? I feel like I got agreement around the room that being clearer about there could be market rate, but it's in conjunction with subsidized housing, that would be acceptable. John,
Yeah,
did you have another comment?
I share your feelings, Peter, that in general, it's nice not to box ourselves in, but I also feel like in this particular issue, I don't see us or the village anytime soon approving TIF financing for strictly market rate. Any, you know, and if something came up that was so amazing that we just had to do it, we would figure out how to change the policy or do something, you know, that it's not like changing the policy.
For ourselves. I mean,
So I get what you're saying, but I also feel like this could get this done.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe just for purposes of clarity, I don't know, Rebecca, if you wrote down, maybe could you just read back the language, or someone read
Sure.
back the language on how the document be changed to make sure we all agree.
Yes. It now reads, TIF assistance will not be considered for market rate housing unless the project incorporates affordable housing.
What about if it's market rate housing and retail? So that wouldn't qualify then.
Correct.
Okay.
Because that doesn't have affordable. Yeah, I think we're being definitive
Okay.
on the affordable. Yep. Everybody good with that?
Yeah, I'll move that change to the
Wait.
policy.
Okay. Now, wait.
I have one concern, and it's going to be contradictory to what I said, but for instance, if a hotel came in and the project had market rate housing, within, it was a large project, I would be fine with, hotels typically need assistance, in my experience, if that is something that the village was wanting in their, thought it was beneficial for them. We had this problem in Milwaukee, and we chose not to give TIF assistance to a hotel. However, we did consider it. And so I don't want to, the language would preclude that scenario from being considered.
Well, no, it
Sorry,
wouldn't,
Allison.
because that's not, because a hotel's not luxury housing, so.
I'm saying if they had housing, market rate housing within it,
As part- So
then-
condos,
and
a hotel. She was
yeah,
saying like a condo. Yeah.
I can't imagine a project that big enough to incorporate that would ever be proposed in Shorewood. You'd have to have
Okay.
so many floors to accommodate both housing and a hotel. I mean, you'd be talking 10 plus stories, maybe
or
more.
two. Right. Okay. I'm okay. I just wanted to voice that I don't, that wouldn't have been my intention, is to include the hotel if it had, say, two sites, adjacent sites, and one was residential. So, okay, I'm fine.
Okay. Then moving on to the last item. Sorry, I'm just blanking on what this was. This a change of language just to clarify what the 8,000 is for,
Yes,
Rebecca?
yes.
Yeah. Is there, so where, sorry, where's the specific language that would change?
In the memo, it's underlined. We clarified analysis is financial, and that in addition, the applicant will pay for all third-party costs associated with the review of the application, TID creation, and assistance. And then in phase 3, we clarified that the applicant will pay for all third-party costs associated with the review of the application, TID creation, and assistance. If a TIF district is created, the fee and third-party costs may be refunded by future revenues of the TIF district.
So again, I feel like this was maybe a little more of a clerical, just confirmation of what the 8,000 was for and the financial component of it. So again, Kathy and David, is that inaccurate? Am I remembering that item correctly? What the issue the board had?
I wish I had some memory of it. But I don't.
No, I don't know what I'm blanking on this one. I had all the other five here in my head. Sorry.
We just wanted to be clear that the first one was an application fee and the second one was a study fee. I think,
That's it.
just for
Thank you. Yeah,
clarification.
Yes. Correct. That was the issue. All right. Is that clear to everybody?
Mhm.
Yes, Kathy.
Are you ready for a motion?
Just confirming, any other questions or comments on that item 6? Okay.
I
I think I'm ready for.
move to approve policy 40, tax incremental district TID creation and tax increment financing assistance, as amended with the request from the village board.
I'll second.
All right. I always forget where discussion comes in this. So do we do discussion now, or is that, what's the correct Robert's rules on this? Just quickly education. Now?
Discussion now.
No,
Okay. Any discussion on the motion in second?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. The motion passes unanimous. All right. I think that's all we have today.
Just one
For this
question.
week.
One question, only because I can't tell if he's on the line or not. Is Dusty still on the line?
Oh.
I didn't hear him in the vote, and so I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
It
I
looks
don't
like
see
he
him.
dropped off.
he dropped off.
Yes, I think he did
Okay.
before
Okay,
the vote.
okay. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, everybody. So again, next meeting next Thursday to review the extension. I really appreciate all your time availability to get this through. Oh, yes, Kathy,
I'll move to adjourn then when you're ready.
have a motion to adjourn? All right, let's discuss that. No, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Thanks again, everybody.
Aye.
Bye.
Bye.